I hear frequently about the law of attraction, and it has to be said that I'm aware that this is a registered trademark of a particular organization that offers this as a program, an educational program, the law of attraction. And I'm not licensed to use the words the law of attraction, so that has to be said right from the get-go. What I think the English words mean outside the relationship of the trademark is that, as you think, so you'll attract. If you think negatively, then you're going to attract negativity. If you think positively, then you're going to attract positivity. If you think in terms of abundance, then you'll attract abundance to yourself, and so on and so forth. And I think there's a certain amount of credibility in this concept. It certainly is not the opposite, that if I think negatively, I'm going to attract all kinds of beauty to me. It's not the opposite, that if I think about being impoverished all the time, that I'm going to attract abundance. So there is some truth that as you think, so will you experience. However, the problem is with this, that if that's all there was to it, we'd all be doing it right now. If all we had to do was, all right, let's not think that way, let's think this way, the entire world could have reformed itself overnight. And why isn't the world reforming itself overnight? It's because we have no control over the constant barrage of negative thoughts, thoughts that negate. And why is that? It's a very, very simple explanation. Due to accumulation of stress. Accumulation of stress. Our mind, if we think of the mind as software, our mind conceives and constructs and governs and becomes a body. And the mind has been exposed so many times to overloads of experience. And the body has to follow into these perceptual overloads. Changes of expectation. You were expecting this, but that happened instead. And then the process of becoming physiologically stressed. Layer after layer of stress has built up in the body. Although stress begins with the mind, it is a psycho-neurophysiological phenomenon, meaning mind, brain, body, that chain of command. Stress isn't in the mind, stress is in the body. And so with all of my best intentions to think differently, unless I have some simple natural technique like Vedic meditation, where I can settle down into my least excited state mentally and rest my body at unprecedented deep levels to release the stress, to peel away the accumulated stress in the physiology, then I'm never going to be free of the feedback that's coming from the body into the consciousness. Our body is the hardware. And so this isn't really a software problem. Can you think positively? Can you think about abundance? Can you think about being creative? Can you think about being, a saint? All of this wonderful advice about how to think better, your grandmother or your great-grandmother could have told you this, and probably did. But, how do we get to that place where we're not being constantly sabotaged and assailed by thought forms that bubble up from a restless physiology that has layer upon layer upon layer of stress embedded in it? One of the legacies of having had stress experiences is called in cognitive neuroscience a premature cognitive commitment. Premature means that the brain, physical brain, prematurely has assigned risk status to something that happened to be around at a time when we got stressed. A smell, a flavor, the chord changes in the music playing in the background at a time when I got stressed. These things, the flavors, the colors, the smells, the relative humidity or whatever, the sounds of the room, they were not the stressors. They were not the things that made us have to change our expectations radically and cause us to have maladaptive stress reactions. They were peripheral to it. But our brain doesn't know about that. And so what it does is it takes a snapshot of this smell, that sound, those colors, and so on. And then even when you have resolved whatever it is that is the primary stressor, the thing that for you was a big demand could have been resolved within a few days. But the brain, nonetheless, is storing all of that data about those colors, those smells, those flavors, and so on. These are the premature cognitive commitments, the premature commitment to the danger condition of an otherwise innocent perceptible phenomenon. Consequently, we're being triggered constantly by these various colors and smells and sounds and flavors and whatnot with which we come in contact in regular innocent daily life. And each one of those then forces us into either mild stress reactivity or gross stress reactivity without our even knowing that that's happening. And so then what happens? You start to feel stressed in your body, and the mind begins to think in terms of fighting or fleeing. The mind there's this feedback loop where the body generates into the mind a tendency to want to fight or to flee. And, behaviors and thoughts that are irrelevant to the actual treasure of the present moment. So the idea to live in present moment awareness at all times is a beautiful ideal, but we have this hardware problem. Our physiology is laden with stress. How to get rid of the stress? Practice Vedic meditation twice every day for 20 minutes. The deep level of rest removes the stress layer by layer by layer, liberates our potential to what? To spontaneously think in the best possible terms, to spontaneously think in a way that is abundance laden, to spontaneously think in a way that is going to make us into people who don't think negatively. Who would think negatively if they didn't have stress anyway? So stress forces us to behave and think in ways that are not serving our intentions and not serving our interests. We need to remove stress, and then everybody can experience having the world present to them the product of their thinking style, of their new state of consciousness.